Audio, yes. Hij zo. Admit. Okay, see waiting room. The mute is. Unmute.
Coffee, guys.
It's all when they come along.
Okay.
Hey guys, we're just going to wait for a few more people to join. Hopefully you can all hear me. Let me know if you can't. Everybody could just mute their microphones for the first part, and then when we start doing questions, or you can either just write the questions in.
Yeah, Martijn is there again. He's really passionate. He's really. You see his laps.
I'm back.
Yo.
Hi.
We're just going to wait a few more minutes, guys, for everyone to join.
Hey, where are we going on Monday?
I think it's start.
Yeah,
It's gonna
good.
be
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, hey guys, I'm Andreas from Blow Kite School. I'm going to be head instructing. This is, along with Seb this season, this is our big air jumping session now, following on just from the wave clinic we just did. If you all want to already get some questions ready, feel free to fire them in the chat, or you can wait till after I've been through what I'm going to go through, and then we can go through those, but already be thinking of your questions. I'm going to run through these points hopefully kind of quickly because I want to make it an interactive session. Hopefully you guys have a lot of questions, and then we can cover those in detail. So just quickly, what I'm going to be covering is basic jumping technique all the way through to bigger boosting, rotations, and looking at your first half or down loops, your first loops, the different types of loops we can make with a kite, and then kite loop progressing all the way to mega loop. So just one last check, everybody can hear me, yeah? Cool. Okay, I'm gonna go. So we're going to look at the basic jumping technique to begin with, guys. So really, this is, in the beginning, it's all about getting your timing going. So we can start jumping even from little things like 15 knots and using bigger kites, which is probably the best way to do it. With the bigger kite, we've got a slower turning speed, so you've got more time to think about what you're doing. And they're a bit more forgiving. So if you're going to pull a little bit too much, it takes a bit longer for the kite to be sent to the wrong part of the wind window. So it's all about timing. So the first thing we want to be doing is making sure our kite's in the right position, nicely in the wind window, 45 degrees, and we've got some good speed. So in the beginning, if we're going to start with smaller jumps, we can start again with lower speed, and everything I'm going to tell you now, you can just do with less effect. So as we're driving downwind, as we're driving upwind, holding our edge, we're just going to edge a little bit. We're going to lose our edge a little bit and start going more downwind to get a bit more speed. And then as we're doing that, we make a bit of slack in the lines. We're going to start sending the kite to the zenith. And at the same time, that's when we're going to start turning upwind to get that, to get the load back in the lines. And then we're going to pull the bar as the kite's at the zenith. We're going to use our legs to push the board off the water. And we're going to actually try and kick the board a little bit backwards to really get that surface of the board off the water so you can leave the water and get some good air. In the beginning, I would say we want to send the kite through the zenith and then back to the zenith. If you're not comfortable to land and you just want to first of all get used to jumping and some hang time, keep the kite at 12, keep the bar pulled in, and just let yourself come back into the water and plot down the water. You're not going to land it, but then you get a feel for how much air you're going to get with how quickly you're moving the kite, and get used to your kite first, how it pulls you, how it boosts you, and these kind of things. As then we're getting more advanced, we're going to do everything with a bit more aggression. So when we're holding our edge upwind, we're going to use a lot more power. We're going to have more speed when we're doing it. We're going to go more aggressively downwind. shoot the kite past the zenith more aggressively, turning upwind more aggressively, pushing off the water and pulling that bar as we feel the pull of the kite lifting us off the water, passing the zenith. Once the kite's gone past the zenith, then we're going to bring it back to 12 o'clock, and that's when we're going to get extra hang time. And as we're coming down to the water, that's when we want to do something that's a little bit intuitive to us, so not our natural instinct. And that's when we're going to dive the kite back down in the direction we're going to go. And this is going to help us with a smooth landing whilst we're pointing the board as downwind as possible. So the common mistakes I see in people who are just learning to jump, the first one is they're not holding the edge when they're taking off. What this causes, the edge is so important on your board as you're taking off. If you're not holding your edge, what you tend to do is you don't get so much height, but you just travel distance along the water, maybe like 1 meter off the water, maybe even less. And what tends to happen is then people pass under their kites because they're not getting the elevation, they're just traveling across. They pass under their kite, they lose the tension in the lines, and the kite sometimes falls on top of them or right near them, and they end up in that sticky situation. So we've really got to remember our edge and our timing with the kite. When we're sending the kite to 12, we're edging even harder upwind and pushing the board off the water. If you're too stressed and you're too stiff doing all of this, it's not going to work. So just start with some small jumps and build yourself up. So for bigger boosting, where we're just normally letting our board go a bit more downwind to get a bit more speed and then edging harder upwind, see some of the riders when they're really overpowered, you're going to start maybe trying to lift your board off the water. So the surface of the board, there's less friction so you can really pick up some speed. And then it's getting that art of coming off the water, then edging even more aggressively upwind and the lines and boost you off the water. This can also be done if you've got a nice kickers like players. You also use these instead of this technique, but it's better on flat water to get used to this technique, get used to your timing and start to feel like you're coming together with your kite and starting to boost a bit bigger. I would say once you've got jumps landing 5 meters, 5 meters, maybe a bit higher, maybe a bit less, then you're ready to start looking at maybe...
Sorry, Chris, can you ask people to turn off their microphone?
Okay, guys, can we all just go on mute for the time being, please? Thank you. Cool. So once we're looking at like 5 meters or so, I would say that's when we're ready to start making some of our first loops. And for landing, I would say using a half loop or a down loop is a nice way to begin. But before we start using the half loop and down loop in jumping, what's a nice thing to do is start practicing using it in a transition. So turning. So if we're riding heel side before a turn, it's nice. I think the easiest way to do it is actually pop over to toe side. And then we're going to just pull, if we're riding on our starboard side, so our right hand side, we're just going to pull as aggressively as we can with our right hand on the bar, which is going to bring the kite, let's say from 2 o'clock, it's going to pass underneath us and it's going to finish. We want it to finish 45 degrees on our port side, so somewhere between 10 and 11. And just be prepared as the kite's coming down through the power zone, you're going to get a big pull, but you can easily just cushion this by heading a bit more downwind and make a nice long carving turn and come out the other side. So this is the good way to practice your first loops. I think a nice half loop or down loop in a transition, just to get used to how the kite generates all that power as you're looping it. Because for your first loops, it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system if you're just making full kite loops to begin with. So making a half loop is a good way to start. Try and get the loop over as quick as you can, guys. So a lot of people, when we start pulling the bar and it's coming down into the power zone, that's when a lot of people start to back out and bail. And this is where you're slamming the kite at that famous 6 o'clock position that we all love. Or we're just making a really big slow loop where the kite's generating so much power, you're getting pulled and you're thinking, man, I'm never doing that again. You just want to get that loop over with, come out the other side. Maybe the first turns you're not going to land, but just get used to how the kite's pulling you. You could even do it without the board, I guess. Just with the kite at 12 and making a loop in the water. Just make sure you're in nice deep water, like waist deep. And just want to get used to your equipment, how the kite loops. Is it stalling? Is it flapping? Do you have enough air in the kite? All of these things. So when we're going to start using kite loops for jumping, we're really comfortable with everything. Can mute our microphones, guys, please? Those who are just joined. This is half looping. The first time, so like I say, using a transition, we want our hand position to be at the end of the bar. So when I'm riding, I keep my hands in the middle of the bar, and I tend to keep 2 hands on the bar a lot of the time. when I'm ready to loop, if I'm going to be pulling, let's say, this side of the bar, I'm going to move my hand position to the edge of the bar so I can get a really aggressive turn in. And by all means, you can pull the bar and add more tension to steer the kite quicker. Then we're going to look at using half loops and these down loops. Once you're comfortable with your transitions, you're going to add them to jumping. So now just make some baby jumps, a couple of meters. And as you're coming down to the ground, that's when if we're driving to the right-hand side, we're going to loop with our left hand. So if we're driving to the right, we make a jump, we're going to loop with our left hand, we're going to make a nice down loop as we're landing. So the kite's just coming halfway round, and then it's going to drive us down. We're going to land downwind, it's going to land nice and softly. So this is our half loop, down loop for our landing. So we've progressed from transition now to half looping the kite in our landing. Then we're going to start looking at heli loops or front loops. It's a nice technique for when you're landing and on the way down. So again, we're driving to the right-hand side. We're going to make our jump. And as we're coming down to the ground, we're going to pull aggressively on our front hand this time. And we're going to make a full loop with the kite. Again, landing really downwind. And it's going to be nice and smooth. So one thing that can happen either we can pull too early, which is the least, which just means that you get the soft landing given to you a bit earlier. So what we want to do then is maybe even, you see some people, even the pros, sometimes they make it a bit earlier to bring the kite in front and then they make a second, or you can just dive the kite again to give you that extra soft landing. The most common thing is people loop the kite a bit too late, just because it's that new feeling, new thing that we're doing, a bit late to go. If we do it a bit late, what you find is you'll hit in the water, and just as you hit the water, you'll feel that nice pull forward from the kite that should give you the smooth landing, and you just get it a few seconds too late. So just try and calculate in your head how long it takes for your kite to front loop. Try and time that as you're coming down towards the water. Smash in that front loop again, aggressive turning, get the loop over as quick as we can, and you'll find you get a nice little drift and you smoothly hit back on the water. Once we're good with front loops, then we're going to start looking at power looping or kite looping. So the best way to do this, I would say start with a bigger kite size, start in light wind conditions. So maybe a 12 meter is good. I think anything bigger than this is probably going to turn a bit too slow. So 12 meter, 10 to 15 knots, no more than that. And then you've got a nice forgiving kite, something that's moving. All the kites now, if you have an open sea kite, 12 meter, they're moving fairly quick still. So we're going to use this kite for these conditions for our first kite loops. I think it's the best. Flat water is obviously ideal. The waves just adds a bit more complication, but however you want to do it. And all we're going to do, as we're going for our jump, as soon as we feel ourselves come off the water and we've sent the kite past the zenith, we're just going to keep pulling even more aggressive and get the kite finished with as soon as we can. This way.
Sorry guys, Danny Stolwijk, can you please turn off your microphone?
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
It's pretty annoying. Sorry.
Thank you guys, okay. Yeah, I'll continue. So we want to get that kite loop over with as soon as possible. Again, if a lot of people, the main thing in kite looping is people are bailing. As soon as that kite's coming down and they're feeling that forward pull, a lot of people are bailing. What I would say to do with your body is relax your hips in the first part. So as we leave the water and we start the kite loop, you're going to get a pull forwards. Relax your hips and your legs, just let them go a little bit behind. And then as you're coming down to the water, bring your hips through and just point the board as far downwind as possible. With your first kite loop, if you're only doing a few meters jump, you're not going to have chance to front loop the kite to help you land or swing the kite back down. So you want the kite loop, maybe if we're going again on the right-hand side, kites between 1 and 2 o'clock. We pass the zenith, we make our kite loop, and you want the kite again to finish in the same kind of area. So around 1 o'clock, not quite going to 12 because you want some forward drive to finish off your move and keep you going. If the kite goes to 12, you can just steer it back down towards 1 or 2 and land it that way. So now we've done front loops and kite loops. Now the progression from kite loop to mega loop. So the way we want to be getting bigger jumps is our technique and our timing needs to improve, and we need to get a bit more confident in stronger wind conditions. So I would say mega looping is only possible in 25 knots or after. We want to be going big, so 10 meters or more, and we really got to be checking between our legs and finding what's there and just really grabbing them and going for it. You have a bit more time to think with this move, but there's a lot more risk as we're going higher, and there's a few more different things that's going to happen with your kite. So the difference between a kite loop and a mega loop, not just the height. But with a mega loop, as opposed to the kite loop where we are steering the kite to 12, we're jumping and we're using that kite loop straight away. A mega loop, what we're going to do is we're going to steer the kite, we're going to jump, but we're going to wait. We're going to wait as we're reaching the climax of our jump, so we give our chance to get as high as we possibly can. Then we're going to time our mega loop when we think we're at the top of our jump, or just before. If we're doing it afterwards, we're going to make mistakes. The kite's maybe going to backstall. We're going to have too much slack in the lines. So in the beginning, if it's a little bit earlier, that's fine. But the art to mega looping is just being able to feel when you're at the top or at the climax of your jump, then initiating that mega loop. Again, aggressive turn. And that's when the kite's going to have a chance to pass underneath you and make that mega loop. Again, I tend to like to relax my hips and my legs when I'm getting the pull from the kite and go nicely through the air, almost head first on my belly, and then bringing my legs back through as I'm passing underneath the kite. So this is what's going to happen when you're mega looping. You make your mega loop, bring the kite back to 12, and because you've generated so much speed, there's going to be a bit of a free fall. So if you imagine this is your kite, I'm going to try and do it with my hands, guys, and this is you. We make the mega loop here. You pass then from underneath your kite, free falling almost, and this is when the tension is going to come back in your lines. So as soon as you pass your kite and you feel the tension again, that's when we want to be steering the kite back in front, because we need the kite for a soft landing. So this is where your front loop will come back in. So you need to judge really on your body weight, which way you're going to loop the kite to bring it back in front. The most common way is, let's say with mega loops using our left hand, the most common way would then to be to front loop using our right hand. But again, depending on your balance, if you feel like your balance is a bit off, sometimes I find it easier to loop again with the same hand, maybe land going the other direction, or going the same direction. It's up to you, again, depending on your body position in the air and how the kite's pulling you. Wind direction, waves, these can all, just be careful with your takeoff, because wind direction and waves can really make your takeoff awkward. Sometimes you hit the top of the lip of the wave a bit and it already sends you into rotation. If the wind's really gusty and changing direction, you can start your jump in one direction and feel yourself rotating in the air. So just wait for that moment where you feel everything's correct before you go for your mega loops. And please practice your kite loops as much as you can, guys, before you're going for this for the mega loops, because it's a dangerous move. And like I say, mega loops are really starting anywhere after 25 knots, and you want to be using no bigger than a 10 meter really. But the bigger jumps you'll do is when you're overpowered, riding with maybe a 9 or 10 meter in 30 plus knots, holding on for your life, really getting used to your equipment and making those loops. That's when the feeling is going to really come to you. But work your way up. Start with that big kite size, start in light wind conditions, and really, work your way up through getting more comfortable being overpowered, getting more comfortable looping with smaller kites and stronger wind conditions. Because I've seen a lot of people just go for it straight away, and it doesn't always work out so well. Okay, so I covered everything there hopefully fairly quickly. Now I want to move on to some questions. So we've got some already coming in. So for the kite loop, I send it directly while leaving the water. Exactly, yeah. So Nick, Prince, that's exactly it. When you're first kite looping, in your first kite loops, you want to be coming off the water and using that kite loop straight away. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of air, and then you're just going to be going straight for mega loops. So just start, as soon as you leave the water, just pull that backhand really hard, get the kite loop over with as soon as you can. And as you're getting more comfortable, just leave that timing a bit more. So I've come off the water, I'm going to wait a couple of seconds this time and then do my kite loop. And you probably still won't mega loop at that point, unless you're in super strong conditions. Just keep adding a bit more, give yourself a bit more time every time. So a few seconds this time, now 4 seconds, 5 seconds. And then to the point where you're really comfortable with your kite and everything, and you're thinking, right, now I'm just going to wait to the top of my jump, or almost just before, then I'm going to initiate my kite loop. And the kite should pass nicely underneath you, and that's when you form the mega loop. But you're exactly, I would say wait before, you don't want to wait until the top, you want to wait just before the top. So in the beginning, give yourself a lot of time before the climax of your jump so you can understand. Because if you've already passed the climax of your jump, so the top of your jump, and you're starting to mega loop, then you're going to lose tension in the lines, and maybe the kite's going to stall at 6 o'clock. Things are going to go wrong. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question, Nick. Make the transition. Okay, so Corny, I have a question from you. At what position is the kite when you make the transition from steering the kite? Is it like a normal jump towards kite loop? So you start to steer it really aggressively. I'm just trying to make sense of this question. So what position is the kite? Corny, maybe you could explain. You could come on the mic and explain.
Like usually when you jump, like, or when I try to do a kite loop, you like you steer your kite at 12, and then at a certain point you need to transition from like steering it towards 12 and then really like hanging on it so it loops. Do you do that before this at 12 or at 12?
Just trying to make sense. So you're doing a kite loop, the kite's at 12. So you're doing a jump, the kite's at 12.
Yeah, so like, okay, you're just normally like on the water, like I do left forward. So I steer my kite towards like from 45 degrees towards 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then do I start with the kite loop when the kite is at 12 or before it is at 12?
So if you're just making a kite loop, so the way you want to be jumping, if you're going to the left side, you want the kite to actually pass the zenith. So don't just send your kite to 12, send it just past. And because you're making a kite loop, you don't need to send it back to 12, just continue with your kite loop. So as the kite passes 12 and you pull the bar in, you're going to come off the water. Don't worry about sending the kite back to the zenith, just continue round for your kite loop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then like when it is too far back, then you make like this extremely big radius kite loop, which makes it like really intense. Or is that?
No. So if you look actually, when we're making a mega loop, what we're doing, sometimes we send the kite past the zenith, then back to the zenith to get that extra air, then we start the kite loop. If the kite's already past the zenith, then you're actually not it's less of a full loop, if that makes sense. So if, let's say you're going to the left, so you're riding the kite between 10 and 11, you're going to shoot the kite towards 1 o'clock past the zenith, then you're going to pull hard on your right hand, send the kite all the way around, and you want the kite to finish again between 10 and 11. So your kite loop's going from like 1 through to 10 and 11.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, whereas with a mega loop, what you might do is you send the kite to 1, then back to 12, and then you take the kite all the way from 12 to 12. That's the difference in the mega loop. All
Okay,
good?
thanks.
Okay, so what I've got another question here from Rince Boasma. Sorry for the pronunciation. What is the best loop to practice to loop during a jump for the first time? Yeah, so like I said, the half or the down loops or your heli loops. So these aren't power moves. These are moves that we use to help land nice and soft. So I would say the down loop, both of them are really nice. But I would say the heli loop for me is the best one. And this is where if we're driving to the right-hand side, you just do a normal jump. And then you're going to pull your front hand as hard as you can as you're coming towards the water. And the kite's going to loop in front of you. It's not such a powerful move, so you shouldn't get such a big pull. That doesn't mean that we want to do a nice, big, slow kite move. We still want a fast kite loop. But you'll just feel the kite pull you a little bit forwards, and that's when you're just going to point the board all the way downwind and land nice and smoothly with the kite. So I would say heli loops or down loops, practicing for the first time, for sure. So hopefully, Rince, that answered your question.
Yeah, and in addition to your answer, I think it's really clear for me. But when you land, do you for your example, you said you're going right?
Yeah.
And then you pull your front hand, and on which foot do you land in front? Do you go to your left or to your right?
If you're using a heli loop, you will keep going to your right. You keep going the same direction. Yeah.
So you use the landing to the right.
Yeah, so we're going to the right. You're going to shoot the kite past the zenith. We're going to make a jump, bring the kite back to zenith. As we're coming down, we're keeping the bar in the whole time. As we're coming down, we're spotting your landing. Then before what you can calculate how long it takes your kite to loop before you reach the water, you pull aggressive with the front hand, and the kite's going to pull you gently forwards, downwind essentially. So just pull your board wherever you're being pulled, go downwind, and the kite will land you nice and smooth. You'll notice as you get better with your timing, because looping's all about your timing. As you get better with your timing, man, sometimes you're just like barely feeling your board hit the water. You just glide nicely down, and then you'll never land without a heli loop again. Once you get used to it, you'll be like, it's so smooth and so nice. You'll never land without a heli loop again. So cool.
Okay.
So hopefully, is that everything from you, Rids?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So, Neek, another question from Neek. So, does it matter how high I jump while practicing those? Yes, I would say for your first kite loops, just when you're initiating the kite loop, as soon as you've jumped, you're not giving the kite chance to take you higher. If you're going to wait, like in the mega loop, with the kite at 12 until you reach the climax, then obviously you're gaining more air time. So as soon as you feel your board come off the water with your jump, get that kite loop over with, and maybe it's just going to pull you 1 or 2 meters, depending on the conditions. So that'll give you a chance to then get used to what it does to your body. And then if you're going to fall or not land it, it's not going to hurt as much as if you were, 5 or 10 meters. Yeah, so I would say just try and keep the kite, try and go in light conditions first, maybe with a 12, like I said, 15 knots, nice and easy. Send the kite to 12. As soon as you feel that pull off the water, getting that aggressive kite loop in and finished, landing downwind, and just build it up like that. The next time, wait a little bit longer, try and get a bit more air, then use a kite loop. But just really get used to how your kite loops. If you've never looped your kite before, just get used to how it's looping, how it performs, the feel in the bar, all these things. And it'll just then you start to become a bit more like one with your kite. If you're just using a new kite, for example, or if you're renting equipment, just get used to how it's pulling, or if you know the model of the kite, then go for it. But otherwise, just be a bit careful with what you're doing. It's a dangerous game. So hopefully that answered that question. Nick, Rinse, you have another one, or did we answer this one?
This one is answered already. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Christina, which model of kite do you recommend for big jumps? Okay, good question. So I typically like the open C shape. So I'm riding with, at the moment I've got an Enduro, but before I was with an RPM. And I like the open C structures. A lot of people now are moving towards C kites. I'm just not a big fan of C kites. I don't like their wind range. I'm not a big fan of 5-strut kites. I like 3-strut. But it's not to say that it's bad for it, but I would say like an open C kite is good. If you're going to use a free ride kite, just be careful because these kites are not designed to turn so quickly. So you might be making really powerful loops. But if you look, most people, like they're riding from core, they use the GTS, which is their open C kite. I think the riders from Duotone, actually, some are using the Dice, again, the open C. Some are using, I know Hadlow is using the Vegas. And I know Aurelien Petru, he actually used the Evo and the King of the Air, which is their like all-round kite. But I would say if you can pick an open C or C kite, depending on your preference, they're the best ones to use. Try and stay away from free ride kites. And wave kites I don't like so much because wave kites are designed with drift. So drift is where the kite is holding in one position. So if you're looping a kite with drift, sometimes you get a little bit of stalling, which isn't nice when you're looping. But that's only my own experience. So hopefully, Christina, that answers your question. Any tips for heavy riders in lighter winds? Yeah. Okay, Peter, I'm with you on this. I'm 95 kilos with all my equipment on. So I'm 90 kilos, 95 with a wetsuit. It's tough in lighter winds. You need bigger kites. So where I say use a 12 meter, I actually take a 14. But we've got to be more selective with picking the days because we're heavier riders. So for me, anything less than 15 knots is not worth a session. And I really go out in 15 knots anyway, just because I like to use 11, 9, 7 meters, and I need like 20 to 25 knots to be doing that. So if you're wanting those light wind sessions, you're going to have to get used to using a bigger kite. You can loop the bigger kites, the 12s and sometimes the 14s if it's fast turning, but just beware you're not going to get the same sensation like you do off the 9 meter, 10 meter, 8 meter when you're looping. Just lower your expectations a bit, but it is always good to practice. If you can use a bigger kite and go in lighter wind conditions, I would say anything bigger than a 14 then, man. Let's not be looping these kites. It's you'll notice if you try, it just takes so much longer to complete the loop and you get so much more power and the feeling's not quite the same. 130 kilo, wow, okay, yeah, 17 is slow. Yeah, man, I don't know what to suggest. 130 kilos is a lot. I think light wind session is probably not going to happen for you. I would say for you, you need to be in 20 knots at least. For your light wind sessions, you're going to have to just, 20 knots with maybe a 12 meter, 14 meter kite is probably what you're going to have to do. Yeah, sorry, I can't advise any more on that, but Rebel, okay, Nick. Rebel for me, like, if you, Rebel, I know like people like Lewis Crathern back in the day, he was looping with a Rebel. You can do it, but you will just notice the difference. By all means, go, if you have 8 and 11, that's cool. Yeah, you can go for it with the Rebel, but you'll just maybe, once you've used the Rebel, and if you get into looping and you really like it, have a go with a Dice or a Vegas, and then you'll start to understand what kites are designed for, because the Rebel is designed for free ride. So it's big hang time, really nice and stable kite in the air. Just to make it as easy as possible for you to have a nice free ride session, but it does have good boosting and good hang time. But if you just cross over from, like you've been using a Rebel, if you can go to a demo day or ask someone to use a Dice or a Vegas, you'll see the difference straight away in their turning speed, how they're reacting when you steer. So it's not impossible, but just maybe the sensation's a little bit different. But by all means, go for it. Go for it with a Rebel 8 and 11. Start with the 11 in like, I don't know your weight, but maybe 15 knots, 15 to 20 knots. Just get used to looping that kite. It'll be nice and friendly. 75, yeah, perfect. 15 knots, you'll have good power. You could even go with maybe a little bit less, and just get used to looping that kite, how it's reacting, those things. So yeah, by all means, go for it, man, with the Rebel. Any more questions, guys? Oh, you already do, Carlos. Okay. Jumping without loop around 5 meter, how to land safe. Okay, so I'll come back to Unique, but just jumping without a loop around 5, yeah, you can still do it. Where the loop, when we're heli looping, the main reason we're looping the kite is because we've passed underneath the kite. From 5 meters, you're not really passing under the kite. A heli loop is a really nice way to land and make your landing nice and soft. So like I say, once you get used to heli looping, you'll always use it, because you know it's so easy. I just aggressively pull, I loop the kite, and the rest is kind of done for me. You can land a kite, you can land a jump higher than 5 meters without a loop. You've just got to, sometimes if you look up at your kite and you see that you're passing underneath it, sometimes we have to steer left and right to bring the kite back in front. Maybe you see some people on the water doing it. But even from 10 meters, you can land without a loop depending on your kite control in the sky. Check up at your kite. If it's way behind you, you're probably going to have to use a loop. That's only happening from the higher distances, higher jumps. But yeah, if it's happening, you can sometimes just wiggle the kite left and right and it will come back in front of you. And then we just aggressively steer down as we're reaching the water, like you would land a normal jump in the direction you want to go. So steering down, not hitting the kite on the water, and then bringing the kite nicely back up once we have our smooth landing. Cool. So yeah, Nick needs to transition into Mega. That's the big step, man. It's an exciting step, but also pretty gnarly. So just be careful, but all the best to you. Christina, so which is the best? Do you like more? Switchblade, Edge, I think, yeah, Ozone, Dice, or Evo. Out of those kites, I would choose the Dice. Like I said, I don't like 5-stroke kites, which I know the Switchblade is. The Evo is an all-round kite, which for me, I'm not a big fan of all-round kites. They're saying like they're trying to do everything, but they don't specialize in anything. So I prefer an open sea like the Dice, which you can wave ride, you can freestyle, you can bigair, but they're not. It's just an open sea canopy. The Edge I don't really like. I think the Edge was maybe a racing kite from Ozone. I can't remember, but from those I would choose the Dice, definitely. Yeah. Cool. So, any more questions, guys? Okay. Oh, we just have one more coming in. Hopefully it's been useful for everyone. Yeah, and hopefully see you on the water soon for some epic sessions. Just be safe out there, guys. Stay stoked. We'll get back to those sessions soon.
Thanks a lot.
Peace out, guys. See you later.
Thanks.